Thanks for staying with us on the conversation. Now, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Conference of the Parties, COP27, closed on a rather positive note on Sunday, as countries agreed to the establishment of a historic loss and damage fund to aid the recovery of vulnerable countries adversely affected by climate disasters. Now, the agreement formed part of the Sharm El-Sheikh Implementation Plan on climate change after loss and damage was included in the agenda for the first time.
Now, with this agreement, parties are recommitting to keep the 1.5 degrees centigrade targets for global temperature rise intact and significant progress made across the board on climate issues. The agreement follows negotiations that ran into extra time as parties disagreed on different aspects of the draft text and saw the presidency and parties locked in detailed discussions around the clock. Now, joining us to discuss these and more is Ineza Umuhoza Grace. She's the Global Coordinator for the Loss and Damage Youth Coalition. She joins us from Seattle in Washington in the United States of America. Thanks for joining us on the conversation, Ineza.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, before I get into my question, Ineza, the Pakistani climate minister did say something instructive in Sharm El-Sheikh. I want us to listen to that, and I'll get back to you.
For 30 years on this path, and today in Sharm El-Sheikh, this journey has achieved its first positive milestone. The establishment of a fund is not about dispensing charity. It is clearly a down payment on the longer investment in our joint futures. It is a down payment and an investment in climate justice. I thank everyone, especially our partners and the United Nations, as well as the Secretary General, for responding in a huge way while acknowledging the catastrophic floods in Pakistan that impacted 33 million people and resulted in losses and damages of over 30 billion.
And as we heard the Pakistani climate minister talking about the significance of the Loss and Damage Fund. Now, how much of a milestone is the Loss and Damage Fund, and how does it differ from all the climate interventions and promises of financing in the past?
Thank you so much. So for what I can say is that having the fund being established is really a milestone, as the the minister from Pakistan said, because the issue of the injustice of having vulnerable country dealing with the negative impact of climate change is something that was in existence since 1992. And the call to really demand for countries to stand in the right side of the history, where they're able to have the funding available to help countries address the negative impact of climate change, is a call that has been in existence for 30 years. So for 30 years, party been asking the same thing, but not having the right outcome that we wanted to see. And in COP27, that was the very first time that it was put on the agenda, and the very first time that country, especially from developing countries, acknowledge the existing gap that is happening in our current global community, and then proved the willingness to start the conversation that is going to lead on the establishment of the Loss and Damage Fund, which is the ultimate need that developing countries are in need right now, especially those who are vulnerable to the negative impact of climate change.
Okay, now Inez, still on this Loss and Damage Fund. Now, the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said that a lot has not been done. Now, from your overall assessment of the COP27, which was on the African continent, I mean, what was your overall assessment? Would you call it a pass?
So for me, based on the fact that I'm from the Loss and Damage Youth Coalition, and our main goal was to see the establishment of the fund at COP27, so I would say that COP27 is a success in my context. But when you look on the broader picture on how we are making progress on keeping the 1.5 alive, or the global goal on adaptation, I would say that this COP tends to be the COP where we saw a little bit of improvement in a sense, in the right direction, where we're able to have tangible hope for the future. But yet, I think also there's also some aspect that needed to be really on the center of the conversation, such as making polluter pays, or like also keeping the 1.5 degree alive. But on the general note, I would say that for the first time, I've been attending COPs in 2018, but for the first time, I can be like, this COP was really meant to create that hope that I was aspiring for, especially in the work that we do.
And nice submission, Ineza, but the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres did disagree in his address at Sharm El-Sheikh. He said the world is on a highway to climate hell. The loss and damage does address mitigation efforts in, dealing with the effects of climate change. But critics of COP27 says it doesn't go enough when it comes to fossil fuels and carbon emissions, which is the reason why we're here in the first place. What's your take on this?
So first, I would just align in the sense that addressing loss and damage, even if we have the willingness to establish, because we didn't have country pledge tangible money on the way that they're going to be accessible in the countries. I would say we still have a long way to go, but yet it's we are starting to have a concrete discussion, and on the fact that we are not having a clear ambition on mitigation. I would say that is that's something that needs a little bit of understanding, because when you cannot deal with loss and damage and forget about mitigation or adaptation, because on the first hand, adaptation is, loss and damage is what happen when we don't loss and damage is what happen when adaptation is not being at the same being addressed. And from our continent, especially in Africa, we are having loss and damage to a very higher scale, because the term of accessibility on the skills and the finance for adaptation is not really accessible in our context. Because when you look on the Adaptation Fund report, you see that a lot of money for adaptation does not go far in Africa, and then that is leading to much more losses and damages in the future. So what I can hope for is that, since now we are starting to start a discussion on establishing the fund for loss and damage, countries are also going to understand that in order to remit losses and damage in the future, they need to go back and improve the adaptation measures. And also, but especially the accessibility modality of how developing countries are accessing funds to adapt for climate change impact. But then on the other side, they will also have to look on mitigation, because it doesn't make sense if we are increasing adaptation and loss and damage, but at the other hand, we are keeping our planet warm. And because we have crossed past the point of return. So that's why we need everyone, every institution to be all hand and decks, especially in the climate change spectrum.
Yeah, I'll still hold on to this climate change, because pending when this funding will come, we've had interventions from COP26 and even other COP conferences. Now, what strategies and solutions can Africa adopt? And should there be penalties for such countries, higher countries who are still being involved in all this green gas emissions?
So for me, I think what can be the ideal solution, first of all, is to change a little bit our lens on Africa as a continent. Because yes, we are a continent that's vulnerable, but we are yet also a continent of homegrown solution. So there's a lot of countries that are putting forward strategies. So for example, I come from Rwanda, and Rwanda is having a strategy to increase even private sector engagement in taking climate action, because we are driving green investment. And we have countries like South Africa that is emphasizing on just energy transition. So there's really good models in our continent that need to be scaled up and be duplicated in so many African countries, so that Africa stands as a continent of solution for climate change. Because when you look on the full spectrum, how our continent is being pictured, it also have a way to have sustainable agriculture, energy resource, or infrastructure. Everything can be redone in a proper manner on our continent, and then served for the world to learn from. So that is that is something that I wish to share, because we've been victimized so many times, but it's time also to really prove to the world that we can also come forward with solution. And one way to do it is to really empower those countries and solutions that are existing in our continent to be able to share their learned experience and be able to be duplicated in other countries.
Now, Ineza, I'm glad you're from the Loss and Damage Coalition, because loss and damage means unbelievable loss. We cannot come back from the loss of culture and entire countries and communities that have been swept away as a result of the effects of climate change. There will come a time when no amount of dollars will be able to bring back what we've lost and broken. So my million-dollar question to you is this: is there still time to stop the climate crisis, or is it something we'll have to live with?
Thank you so much. I'll start from what you say. Are we past the time, or is it time? There's no time, because I have a colleague from mine. He's from the Caribbean, and she already told me that she has her community in the next 1 year. They're going to be submerged with the sea level rise. So we really did pass the time. That's why we need innovative solution, innovative way to stand together in global solidarity and try to preserve what we have left currently. And because there's no way you can put money on paying for those who are losing their history, their culture.
Ineza, are you there?
Like the one that is already in existence. But for that to happen, I would just like to say that we have already passed. So the only thing we can do is to adapt wisely, sustainably, and especially in a more common way. So that's the only thing that we can do right now. But we already passed where we can come back.
And I hope those responsible will do what is needed to save our planet. It's the responsibility of all of us. I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Ineza, Grace Global Coordinator of the Loss and Damage Youth Coalition. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All the way from Seattle in the United States of America. We do appreciate your insights and contribution to the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Bye.
Thank you.
And this is where we drop the anchor on today's conversation. In the first half of the program, we did look at the forming of the G5 integrity group, yes, of the People's Democratic Party. And we just concluded our conversation on the COP27 conference that was held in Sharm El-Sheikh, Egypt. Its resolutions and other matters arising from that conflict, from that conference. Thank you very much for being a part of the conversation. I am Gbenga Aborowa.
And I am Rita Omodia. Don't forget that the conversation still continues on social media at News Central TV. See you again on Wednesday.